Hey, it's Schande! So as I said in a previous video, I've been playing a whole lot of Animal Crossing New Horizons. This game was my very first experience with the franchise, so I'm a little late to the party. However, I've been enjoying it very much nonetheless. One day while I was looking up some information about different aspects of fishing, I came across something that piqued my interest. For those of you that have been playing Animal Crossing for a while, then you know that you have the ability to catch dozens of different species of fish, from tiny little goldfish to giant whale sharks. Fish in the game can be spotted in the water with shadows varying in size. The sizes range from tiny, small, medium, large, very large, long and thin, huge, and huge with a fin. However, while I was reading about all this, I came across something rather interesting. A fish shadow that's even bigger than the huge shadows. A creature that can't be fished up with your rod. A real Animal Crossing mystery. According to the Animal Crossing wiki site, these massive shadows are completely unobtainable. There is not much picture evidence of the shadows, so whether or not this is even real is up in the air. However, let's say hypothetically that it is a real Easter egg. What creature could be casting this giant shadow in the waters of Animal Crossing? Let's try and figure it out. Before we start, let's take a look at everything we know about these shadows so far. First, let's take a look at the pictures that have been found. One is from the original Animal Crossing game, outside of Japan, released for the Nintendo GameCube in 2002. It can be seen very rarely while traveling across the ocean in Captain's boat. The next picture I found is from New Leaf, released for the 3DS in 2013. According to the Animal Crossing wiki site, these fish will never attach to your fishing rod and are completely unobtainable. While I was looking into this, I came across a post on the Animal Crossing subreddit from Reddit user MMK6288, saying that they remembered a circular shadow in the original Animal Crossing that took up nearly the entire width of the river, but disappeared as soon as they tiptoed to the riverside. A few comments in the thread seem to affirm the original post. I know that Reddit and online wikis aren't super reliable sources, but I'm working with what I got here. So, if we were to assume that all of these shadows are the same creature, then it would have to be able to survive in both salt and fresh water. Finally, we can see in the pictures that the big shadows do not have a fin attached to them, so I'd say we could be relatively sure that it isn't a species of shark. Where should we begin? Well, let's start by taking a closer look at the different fish that you can find with the biggest shadow that you can actually fish up. The huge shadow, also called the size 6 shadow, has a fair number of fish in New Leaf that correspond to it. Arapaima, blue marlin, coelacanth, gar, king salmon, Napoleon fish, oarfish, stringfish, and tuna. If we take the average of all the average lengths of these species, then we get 13 feet. This means that the fish averages at 13 feet long whenever you pull something up with a size 6 shadow. Let's compare that shadow to the size of the massive shadow. I tried to compare the two as accurately as I could by comparing the size 6 shadow to the player, which I estimated to be about as long as the player is. I then went into Photoshop to try to recreate the size of the size 6 shadow to the player, and then compare that to the massive shadow once I got an accurate shadow to player ratio. Once that was done, I was able to see that the massive shadow in New Leaf was roughly twice the size of the size 6 shadow, which would give us an estimated length of 26 feet. If we take a look at the shadow in the original Animal Crossing, we can see that the shadow is much larger than Captain's boat. However, we can use the length of the boat to try to estimate the size of the creature's shadow. Captain uses a simple 2-person rowboat in the game, which averages somewhere around 12 feet long. Analyzing the boat-to-shadow ratio, I'd say the shadow is somewhere around 2.5 boats long, which would put the shadow at around 30 feet long. If we were to assume that the same creature is casting both of these shadows, then we're looking at something that's between 26 and 30 feet long. Keep in mind this is very rough estimation work, but I'm trying to be as accurate as I can. Now that we've figured out a size range for the creature, let's take a look at where it's been spotted. In the pictures and videos that show this shadow, it's been seen in the open ocean and off the shoreline. However, the Reddit post says that the shadow was also seen in the freshwater river, which would mean that it would have to be an aquatic animal, or at least be able to survive in both environments, which are called euryhaline species. When I think about fish that can survive in both salt and fresh water, the first thing that pops into my mind is the bull shark. Bull sharks are found all over the world in warm waters. They're known to be very aggressive and are in fact ranked in the top 3 most dangerous sharks along with the tiger shark and the great white. When we think of sharks, we usually think about the ocean, but bull sharks have the amazing ability to thrive in fresh water. Bull sharks have been known to travel up the Mississippi River, all the way up to Illinois. This would seem to be a good candidate for our mystery fish. However, bull sharks only grow to a maximum of about 11 to 13 feet long, which is much smaller than the size of our mystery shadow. Along with that, the shadow doesn't have the accompanying fin, which is associated with species of sharks found throughout the game. So with those facts, we have to strike the bull shark off of our list of possibilities. After the disappointing realization that it couldn't be the bull shark, I started thinking to myself, what creature could make such a big shadow? Well, the most obvious answer would be a kind of whale. Plus, according to the wiki, the data mined name of the file that made the large shadow in the original Animal Crossing was called whale_data. So I started looking into different species that it could be, thinking I found the answer. Unfortunately, looking at the average lengths at some common species of whale, such as the humpback, sperm, or blue whales, all disprove this possible theory, with their lengths ranging between 40 and 80 feet long. A tad too big for a calculated size of the creature. While the notion of the shadow being possibly a smaller species of whale, such as the gray whale, is a valid possibility, we still have to take into account the sighting of the shadow in the river. There isn't a species of whale on the planet that can live in fresh water, so, unfortunately, we have to nix the whale hypothesis. After crossing whales off the list, I had to think a little smaller. After a bit of pondering, I thought to myself, well, what if it was a kind of dolphin? There really isn't much mention of dolphins anywhere in the Animal Crossing franchise, so it could be an option. I didn't think too much of the idea at first, mainly for the reason that I had to bypass whales as a probability, as dolphins can't live in fresh water. However, I suddenly thought of something. River dolphins! That's right, there is a family of dolphins that exclusively live in fresh water, called river dolphins. I thought for sure that was the answer, until I found out that river dolphins can't handle salt water very well, only being able to tolerate brackish water at most. Plus, dolphins in general usually don't grow beyond 15 feet at most, so if the mystery shadow was a dolphin, it would have to be a pretty big one. But then, it hit me. An answer that made full sense to me. The mystery shadow actually could be a dolphin. In fact, it could be the largest dolphin on the planet. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you my final hypothesis of what the creature that cast this giant shadow is. The orca. Here's how I came to my conclusion. After calculating the possible length of the creature, I had to think what could be bigger than a generic dolphin, but smaller than the average whale. What else but an orca? Orcas usually average around 26 feet, with the longest one to date recorded at 32 feet long. That fits perfectly with our calculated size range of 26 to 30 feet. Along with that, the whale data name from the original game could still be accurate, because what are orcas also known as? Killer whales! The only snag in the hypothesis was the sighting of the shadow in the river. So, I did a quick search, and it turns out that orcas have indeed been spotted in freshwater rivers such as the Rhine, the Thames, and the Elbe. There was even a really cool video taken in 2016 of an orca playing in the Suslaw River in Oregon. I know that there are several holes in this theory. First and foremost, comparing the size of the massive shadow and the species you can fish up from the fin-sized 6 shadows, including the whale shark, which dwarf the orca by several feet. That is very true, but in my opinion, the creature that makes the elusive and legendary massive shadow is none other than the orca. What do you guys think it could be? Let me know in the comments about your own theories of what the creature or creatures that could make these shadows are. And that's about it. So far, an Easter egg like this hasn't been seen in any of the other games, including the most recent installation, New Horizons. But who knows, maybe it'll be spotted again in the future. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'd like to give a huge thank you to the artist that made the character stills used in this video. Be sure to follow them and show them some love. That's all for now. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that shit, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye!
I'm your biggest fan, I follow you until you love me. Paparazzi, baby, there's no other superstar, you know that I'll be